Phasmophobia can be an intimidating game for new players, seeing as there's so many mechanics to learn and get the hang of, and as the game updates and more features are added, and with the console release on the horizon, there's going to be more and more to learn about in this game. So in this video, I wanted to give you a basic guide if you're just getting started with Phasmophobia, or if you're just now coming back after a long break. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Starting here in the lobby, this is what you'll see when you first load in. And it can seem like a lot, but all you need to worry about is this section right here. The left screen is for map selection, the screen in the middle is for your character profile, difficulty, and your current truck loadout, and the screen on the right is for your equipment. And believe me, this equipment screen can be really confusing at first. But you don't need to worry about saving loadouts right now. This is where you can add and remove equipment from the truck, and the shop is self-explanatory. This is where you're going to buy and upgrade your equipment, and there are 3 tiers for each item in the game. But for the sake of this video, I'm only going to be showing you how to work with starter items. They aren't actually too difficult to use, they just require a bit more patience. But let's get into an actual game. Now, when it comes to what map to start with, I think it's universally agreed that Tanglewood is the best map for beginners, and pros alike, due to how small it is, and believe me, it is absolutely perfect for learning the game. So let's jump in. Now, if you are completely new to Phasmophobia, your main objective when you start any investigation is to find out what type of ghost you're dealing with before the ghost hunts you. Now, if you already know this, you can skip ahead with the timestamps below, but I want to give a basic rundown for any new player that might not understand what specifically the objective of the game is. There are a total of 24 ghost types in the game at the time of making this, and the ghost type you encounter upon entering a map will be completely random, and each ghost has 3 pieces of evidence unique to that ghost type. So for example, if you find UV prints, you get a response on the spirit box, and the ghost writes in the book, then you'd mark those down and you'd know that you're dealing with a poltergeist. And those 3 pieces of evidence will change depending on the ghost type. The mimic can be confusing, as it has orbs as a 4th hidden evidence, but don't worry about that right now. Your job is to enter the location, gather those 3 pieces of unique evidence using the equipment that the game gives you, and mark it down in your journal until you've identified the ghost. Now, when you first load into the truck, you'll see your equipment here. In the top left, you'll find the EMF reader. Through the middle here, you'll find the spirit box, writing book, and the dots projector. In the top right, we have the video camera, and on the bottom, we have the thermo, the UV light, and the flashlight. Now, whenever you first enter the house, your first objective is always going to be to find the ghost's favorite room. That's where you'll be spending most of your time and gathering evidence. Now, in order to find the ghost room, you'll want to grab a flashlight, an EMF reader, and most importantly, a thermometer. These 3 tools are all you need initially, and I'll explain them more once we get into the house. Turning around, you'll see a bunch of different boards and screens. There are only a few you need to worry about, but here's the basic rundown. On the far left, you have your optional objectives. In the top middle, you have the map of the house. On the bottom middle, you have your sanity meter, which I'll explain in a moment. And on the right, you have a board for sound sensor readings. And you have a board for ghost activity. Now, while you're investigating, your sanity will gradually drain over time. And your sanity can also be drained by ghost events and standing in the dark, among other things. But the only thing you really need to know at this point is that a majority of the ghosts in the game will only hunt once you reach a 50% average sanity. Some ghosts hunt earlier, some ghosts hunt later, but 50% is the vast majority. That means that the ghost will enter a phase where it will lock the front door of the building and come and try to find you. The activity board on the right can also be very important in some cases, but for the sake of this run, you don't really need to worry about it. Most importantly, in my opinion, is knowing where the breaker is. The map will always show a green icon wherever the breaker is. So in this case, we can see that it's in the garage. And lastly, you can check to see any optional objectives that you can do for extra money. But generally, you'll need extra equipment to do them. So for right now, you don't need to worry about that. Once you've entered the house and turned on the breaker, all of the temperatures throughout the entire building will rise and stabilize. That includes all rooms except for the ghost room, which will continually become colder over time. So if you want to find the ghost room in the fastest way possible, all you have to do is make sure the breaker is on, and then walk around with the thermo until you notice temps that are considerably lower than normal. Meanwhile, you're checking for ghost interactions with the EMF reader, and I'll get into this more later, but try to find a few open hiding spots early. That includes closets, lockers, and behind boxes. Now, the hiding spots will be random each time. Some of them are going to be blocked off, and each investigation will also have a random bone placed somewhere, which you can pick up for some extra money. But when it comes to utilizing the breaker and the thermo, this is easily the quickest way to find the ghost room. And another added benefit of turning on the breaker is that once you find the ghost room, you can drop everything including your flashlight and find your way out easily if you already turned some lights on. It's optional, but it opens up an extra slot in your inventory. But now that we found the ghost room, we can head back and grab some more equipment. Next, you want to be checking for the easiest evidence types first. That means checking orbs with the video cam, UV with the UV light, and any potential responses with the spirit box. I recommend checking for orbs first, because if your ghost does have orbs, there will be orbs 100% of the time, as long as you're checking the right room. Next, you're listening for any doors or windows being touched, and you can easily check them with the UV once the ghost interacts with them. Now, this next tip is for a little bit later, but if you have salt and the ghost steps through it, you can check for UV footsteps, which count as evidence. If you see any prints whatsoever, you can mark it down in your journal. And lastly, you can check spirit box. Just be a bit persistent. You can ask questions like, "Where are you? Give us a sign." If you get a response, this little indicator right here will flash white. If the spirit box hears you but you don't get a response, it will flash red. If the spirit box can't hear you at all, and you're getting no light indicators, the game might not be able to hear you, so make sure you have your audio devices set properly. And if you see the ghost interact with something, try using the spirit box next to where you saw the interaction. Being within a close radius of the ghost will increase your chances of getting a response. All of that combined should yield at least one evidence type, and you've still barely started the game. After that, you can make your second trip back to the truck to grab the dots projector and the writing book. Now, the tier 1 dots projector works like a flashlight. It emits a green light that you can sometimes see the ghost walking through. However, the ghost won't always be visible through dots. If your ghost type does have dots as one of its evidence types, it will occasionally enter a phase where it will be visible in the green light. And if you ever see a silhouette of the ghost, you can mark that down in your journal as evidence. As for the writing book, all you have to do is place it down in the ghost room. If you ever see writing or markings appear in the writing book, you can mark that down as one of your evidence types. Now, when it comes to freezing, over time the ghost room will grow colder, so by this point it's worth checking your thermo for freezing temps. It's also worth noting that if you see cold breath in the ghost room, that does not indicate that you have freezing temps. The devs changed it so that now, no matter what, if the ghost room is cold enough, you will see cold breath. In order to get freezing, you have to confirm that the temps have fallen below 0 or 32 Fahrenheit by checking the thermo, in which case you can mark it in your journal. And lastly, make sure you're checking ghost interactions with your EMF reader. That can be anything from the ghost touching something, which will result in a reading of 2, the ghost throwing something, which will result in a reading of 3, to the ghost eventing on you, which result in a reading of 4. If your EMF reader ever reaches a level of 5, you can mark that as evidence in your journal. And that covers every single evidence type. As you look for evidence, your sanity will be draining, and like I said before, most ghosts can try to hunt you at 50% average sanity. So at this point, it's worth remembering your hiding spots, and plotting your escape routes. If you're only using starter items, you won't have any defensive tools yet, like the crucifix or the incense, meaning you'll have to strategically run to a spot that breaks line of sight with the ghost, turn off your equipment, and stay silent. Make sure there's a few adjacent hiding spots and numerous potential escape routes from the ghost room. Escaping takes practice, and don't be afraid when the ghost starts hunting. Just remember your hiding spots, and plot your escape route based on where the ghost spawns. Sometimes the ghost can be annoying and spawn next to your hiding spot, or from a completely different room, which is why I recommend having several escape routes. It's up to you to decide which way to run based on where it spawns. Run this through your head a few times. Where's the ghost eventing on you most often? Where is it doing most interactions? This will help you know where it could spawn, and you can plot your escape route accordingly. Now, it's worth noting that some ghosts have varying speeds, like the Revenant or the Hantu. The Diogen is also very important to remember, as it's the only ghost that still has the ability to find you, even if you're hiding. The only way to counter a Diogen is by looping it. My last tip is to be patient. Phasmophobia is a game that revolves around taking your time. Be careful if you decide to rule out evidence, unless you know for sure it cannot be that particular evidence type. For example, if the ghost touches a door and you see no fingerprints, you can rule out UV almost 100% of the time, unless it's an obake, which can sometimes hide UV. Or if you've looked everywhere with a camera but there are no orbs, you can rule out orbs. And you can rule out writing if the ghost interacts with the book in any way without writing in it. All of the other evidence types can and will be stubborn, so you need to be patient with them and not rule them out right away. Dots and writing can easily become the most stubborn, so I recommend placing a camera with the dots and the writing book in view. By doing that, you're checking for 2 evidence types at once without even being in the ghost room. Also, double check that you have the right ghost room as well. Sometimes the ghost can swap its favorite room, which can be annoying, but that depends on the difficulty. But all of these strategies combined can be very effective ways of dealing with ghosts that are maybe being a bit more stubborn with their evidence. But once you know what kind of ghost it is, all you need to do is select the right ghost type, then head back to the truck and leave. If you're a beginner or haven't played in a while, I hope this guide helped you. When you have no routine going in, it can seem intimidating and overwhelming, so having a bit of a game plan can bring peace of mind. And doing this over and over again will completely destroy any fear you might have. To To briefly recap, don't underestimate the importance of the breaker. Check the easiest evidence types first. Plot an escape route, and be patient. Don't rule out evidence just because you haven't gotten it yet. Maybe this helped you, maybe it didn't. If it did, leave a like and let me know. If it didn't, leave a dislike and let me know. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.